Now we're at invalidators of fasting. The author says, the mufattirs, the things that invalidate a fast. The mufattirs that are not apostasy, the ones other than apostasy, those are what interrupt the abstention. They break the fast of anyone who chose to engage in them knowingly. So apostasy is not here. It is a mufattir, but doesn't depend on your intention or your choosing, etc. We'll come back to it. The things that interrupt the fast of anyone who chose to engage in them knowingly. Chose means he wasn't forced. Though conscious of the fast, yani he did them although he remembered he was fasting, he or she. So if you forgot you were fasting, then you did what would break a fast because you forgot you were fasting, then when you remember, you stop immediately and your fast is still valid. Ignorantly engaging in a mufattir other than apostasy invalidates the fast, except for a new Muslim or the like. Not knowing that it invalidates. That's going to still break your fast, except for the new Muslim or the like. This one's not going to break his fast. As for the apostasy, it doesn't matter if you were ignorant about it. So precisely, fasting is interrupted by apostasy, absolutely. Self-induced vomiting means you made yourself vomit. Sexual intercourse for a man, not the woman, yani, her fast would be invalidated before the sexual intercourse is complete or initiated, yani, before it's initiated. Ejaculation by contact, without a barrier, skin contact, like kissing, and then you ejaculated by that. Menstrual and postpartum bleeding, that's clear. Childbirth also breaks the fast. Insanity, a coma from before dawn until after sunset, or if you want to use the word fainting, being in a coma or having fainted from before dawn until after sunset. So then that's invalid. That day is invalid. And every digestible and indigestible volume, so digestibles like food, indigestible is like a coin, a piece of metal, for example, or a stone. Every digestible and indigestible volume, something that takes a space, like smoke, intentionally introduced into a metabolizing or non-metabolizing cavity. Metabolizing means transforms what's that space transforms what came into it, assimilates it into the body, yani, or starts changing it, like your stomach. Introduced into a metabolizing or a non-metabolizing cavity. Cavity means open space. So not your muscle. Putting a needle into your muscle, that doesn't invalidate your fast because that's not a cavity. Putting lotion on your skin, putting eye drops, we're going to talk about that, doesn't invalidate. through an original or unoriginal orifice. Original, we're going to say what they are. Unoriginal is like if you had a hole in your throat or your skull was open. So your skull is open, that leads to a cavity. Now you have an opening that leads to a cavity. Or you have a hole in your throat, so now you have an opening that leads to a cavity. So through an original or an unoriginal orifice, while conscious of fasting, you didn't forget you were fasting, except pure unmixed saliva, that you can swallow it. Let's read that one more time from here. Precisely, fasting is interrupted by apostasy, absolutely. So no matter what, apostasy breaks your fast, that's clear. Self-induced vomiting, so not if you vomited without making yourself vomit. If you vomited not on purpose, then that won't break your fast, but you can't swallow anything back. If you swallowed something back while able to stop yourself from doing that, that will break your fast. Sexual intercourse for a man, ejaculation by contact without a barrier. So not ejaculation while sleeping or just by looking, for example. That won't break your fast. Menstrual and postpartum bleeding, childbirth, insanity, coma from before dawn until after sunset, and every digestible and indigestible volume, something that takes up space, intentionally introduced into a metabolizing or non-metabolizing cavity. So we're going to talk about those. Yani cavity is like the space in your head, the space in your chest, space in your stomach, your intestines. All those are cavities. Through an original or unoriginal orifice while conscious of fasting, except pure unmixed saliva. Pure, yani not filthy saliva. Like what if your mouth was bleeding and then you spit out all the blood and your saliva became white? So is it pure now? No, it's still contaminated until you rinse your mouth out with water. Then if you swallow that white saliva after there was blood in your mouth, and now there's no more trace of blood, but you haven't rinsed your mouth out yet, so your mouth is still contaminated, and then you swallow that white saliva, you will break your fast. So it has to be pure, meaning not filthy saliva. Unmixed means not something in there in your saliva. Just only unadulterated saliva that's not najis. You can swallow that, it won't break your fast. So according to that, then you cannot swallow the mucus that drips from your head. That's not unmixed saliva. Original orifices are the mouth. So can you elaborate on sexual intercourse for a man? Yani, because if the entire tip of his private part does not enter a private part, if the entire tip does not disappear into a private part, then his fast is not broken yet. As for the one who's being penetrated, this one's fast is broken even before the entire tip disappears into the private part. So then the one who's being penetrated, this one, the fast was not broken by the sexual intercourse, it was broken before the sexual intercourse. And as for the man, his fast won't be broken until the sexual intercourse. That's clear?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Part is clear to me is about the man, but part about the one who's before the penetration, the fast is broken. What do you mean by that?
Not before the penetration. Before the sexual intercourse is commenced, because the sexual intercourse is commenced by the disappearance of the tip of the man's private part. So that means that just by some of the tip getting into that opening, this will break the person's fast, the one who's being penetrated. Okay. And the man's fast who's penetrating, it won't be broken until the entire tip disappears. So the original orifices are the mouth, the cavity of, the cavity from there, from the mouth, starts below the exit of the letter ha in the throat. So it doesn't mean that just because something is in your mouth, it broke your fast. No. The mouth is the orifice, it's the inlet to the cavity. And the cavity starts, the actual cavity that you can't breach, it starts at the middle of your throat where the letter ha is. So if something gets below that, this will break your fast. The nose, that's an original orifice. From there, the cavity starts after the bridge of the nose. Yani, where your nose connects to your face. Where your nose is connected to your face. So if something gets past that, gets inside your face, yani, then your fast is broken. Therefore, snorting mucus from the nose through the head to spit it from the mouth invalidates the fast, according to Ash-Shafi'i. So, COVID test through your nose is going to break your fast. The front and back privates, those are orifices which lead to the bladder and the intestines. Those are the cavities, the bladder and the intestines. Therefore, enema and colonoscopy will invalidate the fast. According to what is most correct, had a man stuffed cotton into his penis, his fast is invalidated. Also, the woman's fast is broken by only part of the gland's penis entering her vagina. That's what we were just saying. And according to some, the ears is an original orifice. That's not a matter of consensus. And definitely not the eyes, so eye drops will not break your fast, nor the pores, so lotion on your skin will not break your fast. But if we say that the ears are an orifice to the cavity, then the cavity starts after the ear canal. But if we say that the ear is not an open orifice, then if you put eardrop in your ear, it will not break your fast. As long as it doesn't get inside your head, Yani. I said COVID test through your nose is going to break your fast, yes. Unless they don't put it all the way inside like they're supposed to. If they do it like they're supposed to, that's going to break your fast. Okay. Breaking the fast. You're welcome. One of the sins of the body is wisal, fasting 2 or more consecutive days without eating something intentionally, without an excuse. Excluding the Messenger of God, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was allowed to do that. If by observation someone confirmed sunset, then it is recommended to rush to break the fast. If one only thinks the sun has set by way of a determination, he made an ijtihad, he thinks the sun is down. So that's what he's confident about that. When we say he thinks the sun is down, it means he's confident about that. But don't forget, whenever you say ijtihad, it means there's not a definitive evidence. You don't make ijtihad when you have a definitive evidence. So he thinks the sun has set by his ijtihad. He's confident that it went down. Then what? It's not recommended for him to rush. Yes, drinking water will break your fast. Hakada. Perfectly fits the description of what we said. If one has no sign whatsoever of sunset, so he couldn't have made an ijtihad if he has no proof, or he doubts if the sun set, so it's not an ijtihad also, because ijtihad leads you to confidence. So if you're doubting, you can't use that. Then he is not allowed to break the fast. The best is to break the fast with rutab. That's a stage of the dates. And if not, then with dates. And if not, then with busr. That's another stage of the dates. And if not, then with water before praying. Yani, it's recommended to rush to break your fast when you're sure the sun went down. With anything, yani, just in general, to rush to break your fast. And the best is to break your fast with what we mentioned here. Before praying. It is recommended to take 3 of whatever one uses to break his fast. And after breaking the fast, it is recommended to say, Allahumma laka sumt wa ala rizqika aftart. ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. O Allah, for you I have abstained, and with your provision I have broken my fast. The thirst has gone, the veins have moistened, and the reward is confirmed, God willing. Makeup fasting. Invalidating the fast without an excuse is forbidden, as well as delaying its makeup. Delaying the makeup of what you invalidated without an excuse. That's forbidden too. So that's 2 sins. Permission to delay makeup is for anyone who did not transgress in breaking his fast. However, according to what is correct, once an obligatory makeup fast is commenced, yani you started your makeup, that means you're outside of Ramadan. You can't do makeup fasting while you're inside Ramadan. You have to fast what's current. So you're outside of Ramadan, making up an obligatory fast. Once you start it, it is not allowed to interrupt it. So that's different from a sunnah fast. Whether the fasting had to be made up immediately or not. Yani, even if you had the permission to delay making up that fast, once you actually started making up that obligatory fast, you cannot stop. You have to complete it. But if it were a sunnah fast, you would have been allowed to interrupt that fast. Therefore, insanity by transgression, meaning you took what's going to make you drunk, knowing it's going to make you drunk, and you lost your mind because of that, this requires immediate makeup after the Eid. A coma throughout the entire daytime, traveling, and sickness require makeup with permission to delay until next Ramadan. So you fainted for the whole day. That's not valid. You're going to have to make it up. And you have an excuse to delay making it up until next Ramadan. Also, you were a traveler. So you didn't fast, or you were sick. Here, sick while you hoped that you'd get cured. While you hoped that you'd get cured. So then you're going to have to make that up with permission to delay that makeup until the next Ramadan. The unbearably sick might hope for cure or not. If he did hope for a cure, then this one who's sick, but inshallah, he's going to get better. And likewise, the pregnant and nursing women who fear for themselves, even if they also feared for their babies, they merely remake the fast, they make it up with permission to delay and without a redemption payment. So a person is sick, but he hopes that he's going to get better. Yani, he thinks he's going to get better. Like, you're sick now, and inshallah, you're going to get better. Then he's just going to have to make it up, and he does not have to do a redemption payment. The pregnant woman who was afraid for herself, and the nursing woman who was afraid for herself, then she's not going to have to pay a redemption payment. She's only going to have to remake that fast. Even if she was afraid for her baby too, it was enough that she was afraid for herself to not have to pay a redemption payment. However, the healthy residing woman, she's not sick, so there's no excuse there. She's not a traveler, so there's no excuse there. The healthy residing woman who broke her fast only for the sake of the child, she wasn't even afraid for herself. So she broke her fast only for the sake of the child, then she must remake that fast and also pay a redemption payment according to the strongest saying. And the elderly, so they're not going to get young, and the sick without hope for cure, so it's terminal, are not obligated to remake it. So then they don't have to make it up. Then there's only a redemption payment. So could you elaborate on sickness, which is requirement for being considered sick? Yani, sickness is known. So a person would be sick with all sorts of sicknesses. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's strong. Like, light is like what? Maybe he has a cold. So he has runny nose and he's sneezing and coughing. Let's say maybe he's weak, so he's sick. So he might say, I'm going to fast. Or he might say, I have to fast. I know I can. It's just a little bit. I can do it. I know I can. So he has to. Or he might be pretty sick. He's in the bed and he can't even get up, and he's weak, for example. He said, I can't fast. So then he can break his fast. But he might be saying, inshallah, I'm going to get better. I think I got COVID. SubhanAllah, I'm just so knocked out here. I can't even get out of this bed. Then if he couldn't fast because he was too sick to fast, then he can break his fast. He expects to get better, so then he has to make it up later. Or he might be just very sick in such a way that he can't fast. He maybe has to take his medicine all the time. If he doesn't take his medicine, then he's ruined, for example. And then there's some people that they don't want to fast, so they don't even really try to just adjust their dosage and things like that. And they really could, if they just put some effort, they would be able to fast. And so those people, sometimes a person lacks precaution, wara. go by the side of precaution. The Sahaba used to avoid 99 permissible things out of fear of falling into one haram thing. If you get a cold, you could still fast. For example, depends on the strength of it. You might get flu and you can't fast. You might get cold, you can fast. Maybe you got the flu and you can fast. The new school of Ash-Shafi'i, and what Ash-Shafi'i documented in most of his old books, is that whoever dies having fasting of Ramadan, then his heir or even a stranger pays food on his behalf from the dead's money. He pays food on behalf of the dead from the dead's money. How much? 2 cupped handfuls for every missed day. A mud. We're going to call a mud bowl or just a bowl. So I'm going to say bowl sometimes or mud bowl. And I might say mud, so just be mindful. According to this, one does not fast on behalf of the dead. One does not fast on behalf of the dead because fasting is a bodily worship. Rather, according to this, you just pay on behalf of that dead Muslim who didn't fast all of his days. Every bowl can be paid to one poor Muslim. Yani all the bowls can be paid to one poor Muslim. The other saying is that it is obligatory to fast on his behalf. The heir would fast on his behalf. In Al-Rawdah, An-Nawawi was certain that the old school is correct. Al-Basir says that the fasting is recommended while paying is permissible. This is also validly done for an expiation or a vow. According to this school, fasting is different from prayer and i'tikaf, for there being nothing narrated about the validity of replacing it by another's doing. Meaning, according to this saying, you can fast on behalf of someone else, but there is no saying that you could pray on someone else's behalf or do i'tikaf on someone else's behalf. Concerning someone who broke his fast with an excuse, and then he died before being able to make it up, he has no makeup, nor any redemption payment, and nor a sin. Redemption payment. Before I go forward, any question? Am I going too fast? Is this too much information? Should we stop here?
Shay, I do have one question. Can you go back to explaining the istihad? You said something about it's not a definitive. Then it got cut off for me.
Yeah, let me come back to that if you don't mind. That's
All
just
right,
going to be outside of the issue of fasting.
Okay.
Remind me if I forget, inshallah.
Sheikh, can you tell us what i'tikaf means?
I'tikaf is staying in the masjid with an intention.
Okay.
That's a worship.
MashaAllah. Barakallahu feek.
Amin wa feek. What if he delayed making them up without an excuse? Past Ramadan, then that's haram. And then there's another fidya that we're going to talk about. He said, I heard in lesson the condition for being permitted to break the fast for a pregnant nursing woman or a sick person is they feared they would die, lose function of an organ, prolonged sickness, or hands and face become deformed. Is this not the case? You don't have to fear you're going to die. That's not a condition. You don't have to fear you're going to lose the function of the organ. No. Prolonged sickness as a condition. Yeah, and it's just, I haven't heard any of that. I never learned any of that personally. Just all I know is person is sick right there that day of his. He can't fast. So that's difficult for him. It's more than bearable. It's unbearable, Yani. For him to fast with his sickness is unbearable. So what helps here is to get an idea of some things that are bearable, just to give you a gauge. What's example of bearable? Bearable is like you're fasting and you've got a splitting headache. Might be debilitating, this splitting headache, a migraine. And you're just happy to get off work and go into the masjid and lay down on the floor till Maghrib. So you have to keep your fast here. So that's bearable. What's an example of a bearable pain, for example? Another example, just outside of fasting though, but to give you an example, like if a person needs to make wudu, but he has a needle in his arm, and in order to make his wudu, he has to take that needle out, but then he's going to have to put it back in after he finishes wudu. And that hurts. So since that hurts, can he just make tayammum and not have to do that? No, because that's bearable. So that's just some cases there that a person would persist. He would be patient with his sickness. All that's sickness, Yani. You're going to count that reinsertion of your needle into your arm as like sickness. So all of that, what I just told you, I only gave you 2 examples. That's bearable. So if it's like that, then you have to continue to fast. If it's unbearable, you don't have to fast. I mean, wafikum. Regarding the one who had excused makeup fast, and then he died, and he became able to make it up. He became able to make it up, but he wasn't obligated to make it up immediately, and then he died without making it up. That's the question. Then he gets a sin, a major sin written on him upon death. If he became able to make it up, but he didn't, and it was permissible for him to delay it, but he was able to, and then he died without it, without making it up, he gets a major sin written on him, against him, upon death. Amin wa fikum. Same thing for prayer, same thing for Hajj. A person was allowed to delay making up the prayer, was able to make it up, and died without making it up, then upon death, this person will have a major sin written against him. A person became able to perform Hajj, financially able. And according to Ash-Shafi'i, he's still allowed to delay it, but now he has to do it before he dies. If he dies without making it, after he became able to, then upon death, he'll have a major sin written against him. Redemption payment. Redemption payment, fidya, for missing the honor of Ramadan's fasting time, according to the most prominent saying in the school, is paying a mud bowl, 2 average hands cupped together, full of the most common staple of the town, meaning something that's paid as zakah, that would be applicable to zakah, or zakah is applicable to it. For every missed day, he pays such a bowl, whoever has to pay this fidya. From one's own money to the poor. If one is poor himself, then it remains in his account until he's able, and then when he becomes able, he pays it, as opposed to zakatul fitr. So this payment is due on the elderly, because he's not going to get young again. So since he's not going to get young again, he's not going to have to make it up. So he's going to have to pay for every day, a bowl for every day he doesn't fast. The sick who is hopeless of cure, because he's not going to get cured, so he's not going to have to make it up. So he's going to have to pay a bowl for every day he doesn't fast. And the pregnant and nursing women who broke fast for the sake of their children, not for themselves. And paying a redemption also applies to whoever delayed remaking a day of Ramadan until the next Ramadan came without an excuse. And redemption payment will increase with the increase of years. Every Ramadan that passes, you're going to have another bowl you have to pay for every day. Because making up the fast can only be delayed as long as the next Ramadan did not come. But unlike the aqiqah, it does not increase for the number of children. Yani, for the case of the woman who she broke her fast for the sake of the children. What if she had many children? Does that matter? No, that doesn't matter. It's not like aqiqah. You're going to slaughter more and more animals for the more babies you have. So that's fidyah. Don't mix that redemption payment with the kafara, the expiation. And for myself, I try not to say pay an expiation. I try to remember to say fulfill an expiation. So redemption payment, you're going to pay it. You're going to give someone that food. That food's basically money. So you're paying food. Expiation, let's see. If intentional sexual intercourse during a complete daytime of Ramadan by someone who's accountable to fast, who intended at night, if this sexual intercourse invalidates the fast sinfully, then one must not only make up the fast immediately after the Eid, if able, but also fulfill an expiation. Let's break that down, though. If intentional sexual intercourse during a complete daytime of Ramadan. So sexual intercourse, we know what that means. So we're talking about the man here, not the woman. Because it's not the sexual intercourse that breaks the woman's fast. During a complete day of Ramadan, yani, the day is not interrupted by something else. His day is not interrupted by something else. Like if insanity or death occurred during that daytime, his day got interrupted by something else. Yani, he did break it by the sexual intercourse, but the day got interrupted by something else, like the insanity, for example, or death. So if intentional sexual intercourse during a complete daytime of Ramadan, so we're not talking about he broke the fast outside of Ramadan by sexual intercourse, by someone who's accountable to fast, so he didn't have an excuse. He wasn't a traveler, for example, having an excuse. Rather, he's obligated to fast, and he had an intentional sexual intercourse, and he intended at night, not like if he forgot to intend at night. If he forgot to intend at night, so then his day is not valid. And then he had intercourse in the day, then there's no expiation. So, if intentional sexual intercourse during a complete daytime of Ramadan by someone who's accountable to fast, who intended at night, if such a sexual intercourse invalidates the fast sinfully, then one must not only make up the fast, he has to do something else. He has to make up that fast immediately after the Eid. He also has to fulfill an expiation by one of three things that have a mandatory sequence. One, the first is to free a believing male or female slave without defects that hinder work, like a limp or a missing thumb that hinders work. Not like a bald head or no eyebrows. That does not hinder work. If one did not find such a slave, then he goes to the next issue, fasting for 2 consecutive lunar months other than the invalidated day. So he has to make up that day and then fast for 2 months because he couldn't free a slave. And if unable, then he feeds 60 poor Muslims. So that's paying, but fasting is not paying. If unable, he feeds 60 poor Muslims, each a mud bowl of the town's most common staple. Not one Muslim, 60 times. And if unable to do any of that, then one remains liable. Whichever he becomes able to do, then he does it. If sexual intercourse were repeated on a second day of Ramadan, then a second expiation is due upon him. However, if the intercourse were repeated on one day, he only has one expiation because that one time broke his fast. Now his fast is broken. However, he still has a sin for each time because he has to honor the time and refrain.